Good morning, afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is, what day is it? Sunday? Today is Sunday, October 5th, 2025, and the OPP are trying to throw one of their officers under the bus. I am not surprised by this turn of events at all. The officer who was in the Tim Hortons saying that the woman was not trespassing, the Rebel news reporter who was recording was not trespassing, and he's not going to trespass her because she hasn't been asked to leave, so on and so forth. And apparently the OPP are just letting this person twist in the wind, or are turning on their officer and saying he did not do what he was supposed to do in that situation. And I don't think that that's actually correct. Animal abuse at the ostrich farm. An ostrich has died in the care of the CFIA, and that's not good, and that's very bad. So we'll see. I've got news on that. C9 and the CPC's strategy is to push the Supreme Court to maintain the current definition of hate speech rather than the C9 rewrite of the definition of hate speech. I'm not sure if that's a strategy that's going to work, but we'll find out. Pressure on the PBO to walk back claims of fiscal disaster, and rats are infesting Vancouver and the federal government, obviously. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, the rats. Right here is JJ McCullough, and he says, I'm just going to come out and say it. Vancouver is infested with rats. I'm tired of going to restaurants and seeing rats and the guy being like, what can you do? It's Vancouver. We live in Ratatouille here, right? Like the rat is actually the chef. I didn't know if you know this. So yeah, here's footage of Vancouver rats running. Like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, more rats as he's panning around. But here, let's just freeze it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 rats in the frame, just on the first frame. I didn't realize Vancouver was such a rat-infested city. Reminds me of our federal government. That's 2 federal government rat jokes in the last couple of minutes. I know, that's too many. But our federal government, the infestation of rats in the federal government is actually just all the rest of the show. So enjoy. We'll examine the rat infestation now. Here is Mark Nixon, and he says Mark Carney is heading into Washington next week. He's walking straight into a hornet's nest. Analysts in the United States, this guy's in the United States, say that the game is already set, 51st state or nothing. Can you imagine listen, hi, we're going to destroy your economy unless you become the 51st state. That's the end of the meeting. See you later. Good luck. Bye. Like, that's the end of the meeting, and then you're left with that. Because I think Canada's economy would be destroyed if we couldn't trade with the United States the way we do now. And so if Donald Trump wants Canada as the 51st state, recently there seems to be a change in Donald Trump. Before he seemed kind of restrained. Now he does not seem very restrained. And so do you think he'd pull something like this? Oh, yeah. And do I think I think it's probably just a matter of time before he gets what he wants. Maybe. I could be wrong about that. Certainly. There could be some configuration where Canada stands up for itself. But we're watching the wholesale invasion of the country, and we have yet to see Canada stand up for itself. So, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. So we'll see if Canada is just absorbed by the United States due to economic force, as Trump predicted, or if Canada decides to stand up for itself. If I was a betting man, here is one of the experts on CTV, so take it with a grain of salt, but he's saying Trump's endgame is the 51st state for Canada. And, well, here you go. Like, why would he change anything about what he's doing? Because what he's doing is putting us on that pathway.
Donald Trump will probably threaten to walk from that as he continues to double down on this idea that somehow Canada is taking advantage of the United States, which simply isn't the case.
Yeah, and so is there an off-ramp for both countries in which the president can declare a win and the prime minister can declare a win and we can all be friends again?
Well, unfortunately, Donald Trump has continued with this idea that, in fact, just recently he made the comment that Canada should become the 51st state of the United States. And so I do believe that is Donald Trump's endgame. And I think we have to keep that in mind, as absurd as that might sound to a lot of Canadians and even to people on this side of the border as well. But nevertheless, I do believe that this is going to continue to see this relationship be very tense as Donald Trump has just very different ideas and aims for the relationship, because he believes Canada, quite frankly, should be subservient to the United States. And I don't think any amount of goodwill is going to change that.
I mean, right now, Canada is subservient to the United Nations, to the WHO, to all these supranational organizations. We're subservient to the United States as well. If they say jump, we pretty much say, how high, sir? Like, yes, we can jump, and yes, we will do it. And if they don't want to have a meeting with us, Canada's very concerned. So like we're already in a position of subservience to the United States, I think. Table Salt says, the government of Canada now says there is no timeline for reaching a trade deal with the USA. Yikes, right? That's not so good. From July 1st, we'll have a meeting, or we'll have a deal, said Carney, by July 1st, which did not happen, to, I don't know, whenever we get to it, whenever we're the 51st state, we'll have a deal, because the deal will be free trade. I wonder if they'll onboard us with par dollars, right? Like, don't worry, Canada, you'll get a little injection here. All of your dollars are now US dollars, right? When you go to the bank, you'll take out US dollars in the bank. That's it. There you go. You're welcome, Donald Trump, right? I don't know. I can't see it. Probably what will happen is we'll keep our currency and we'll keep our flag, and we will be like Guam and not even get a vote. I hope we get a vote. If we get absorbed, do you want to vote, or do you want to be like Guam? I think that if we don't even get a vote, then Canadians should reject this deal. But at the same time, I don't think we have a choice. There's not going to be an election about this. Nobody's going to say, what do you think? Let's have a referendum. Should we join the United States? It's going to be, you're doing this, or a Great Depression is going to be a stretch goal for you because your economy is going to be so flattened. So I don't know. If the U.S. doesn't want to meet with us, that's a problem. And right, so from July 1st to never, best crisis negotiator in the world. Wah, wah, right? Fail. Here is Ryan Gerritsen, and the CEO of Enbridge is saying, we have had 10 years of failure, 10 years of stagnation, 10 years of not taking seriously our responsibility to develop these things and bring product to market that customers want and can access, and so on and so forth. And if we continue dropping the ball, other people are going to eat our lunch. That's paraphrased, but here he is saying it.
Canadians, practical as ever, are asking straightforward questions. Will we have the courage to take advantage of this moment? Will we once again build and prosper? Or will we miss the opportunity again? Today I stand before you again, and I'll put it plainly. We can't walk anymore. We need to run and fast. The last 10 years have been a competitiveness disaster for Canada. But the next 10 can be a renaissance if we choose to lead. This is our second chance. One doesn't often get second chances, and it's a better opportunity than it was before, but it comes with much higher stakes and less time to take action. I believe we can build. I believe we can compete. I believe we can win. But winning requires decisions, urgent, confident, investable decisions. Decisions that will lead Canada to becoming the best place in the world to build energy, infrastructure, and critical resource projects that fuel jobs and growth right across our entire economy.
Decisions, eh? Ooh. Best I got is a new government agency with an old bureaucracy that we're renaming. No, I can't get you on that. Oh, decisions. I don't know that I can make any decisions, says Mark Carney, as he proceeds to say, for 10 minutes straight. Canada Proud is reporting, here's our grab bag of governance. I have to get through this quickly as well, because I've got a kitchen table talk coming up at 1 o'clock. And so we might be right on time for it. This might roll directly into the kitchen table talk. And I don't think I'm going to do any cutting or anything like that. I'm going to just release the whole show as it is for everybody everywhere on streaming, and I'll upload as soon as I can. But I have things to do this afternoon as well. Canada Proud is reporting. This is our grab bag of governance. Canada Proud says, this is Ottawa after 10 years of the disastrous Liberal government enabling drugs. Right. So, I mean, I'd rather have these guys addicted to the money from an oil rig job than addicted to fentanyl from the government, right? Like, honestly, if you have a family and a mortgage payment and a truck payment, you're addicted to those payments, man. You're going to work and you're like, I'm loving this job because it pays for all of that stuff that all my family likes. And like, that's kind of what we're designed for, right? But now it's been transitioned into, here's some fentanyl, go live in a tent city in Ottawa. And that's supposed to be good? Nope. It looks terrible. And it looks like Canada stopped. It's just a sad tent city, but we stopped caring about ourselves as a society. I don't think our society is a cohesive society in Canada anymore. I think that it's fractured beyond I don't know if it's fractured beyond repair, but I don't think people care about each other anymore because there's no real pathway to that, unfortunately. Here is Gary, and he says summary of 2021 to 2025 with regards to the Truth and Reconciliation Day, so-called, and $216 million spent on grave searches, no remains confirmed, $57 billion in indigenous settlements since 2015. The indigenous, although the summary is supposed to be from 21. Come on, Gary. I'm just kidding. $57 billion for indigenous settlements since 2015. The indigenous budget has tripled to $32 billion per year. $32 billion per year? What's the justification for that? There's no reform here that's worth looking at? This is a lot of money. What are we spending it on, really? Billions spent, nothing found. The truth is still buried. No audit. Canadians are left in the dark while this fraudulent scheme rolls on. And it does seem like a fraudulent scheme. If you run a business or a government or anything like that, and there's this black hole of money going somewhere and you're not allowed to look at it and you're not allowed to question it and you're not allowed to say, okay, we're going to cut that off, then that's a big problem, right? Bernier and the PPC have been calling for the end to the Indian Act for years, and nobody else will touch it, right? Weird stuff. Mark Nixon says they did freeze bank accounts. They did erase news from social media. They did crush charter rights, and now they're quietly writing laws to make it all legal next time. But sure, tell me again how it's a conspiracy theory. So this is, I think this is a liberal, and he's talking about, well, here's what he says.
The member opposite tries to say, you have government, the Liberal Party. We're going to take away your internet. We're going to take away your cell phones. We're going to deny you the opportunity to do your banking. And they come up with this whole conspiracy wearing not necessarily wearing a tin hat, but this conspiracy theory, how big government's going to take everything away when the legislation is all about protecting Canadians, protecting the economy. Does the member see any merit in having cybersecurity legislation that would ensure that the interests of Canadians is being served, such as our economy, economic transitions that take place every day by the thousands? Does he not see the merit for protecting that?
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, I wish this was a conspiracy. I wish the Liberals had the shame to keep this secret. It's open. It's in the bill. Multiple civil society groups have written letters to them asking them to change this, sounding the alarm. And when he says he thinks that I think it's a conspiracy that they might freeze bank accounts, they already did that, and the federal court told them that was a violation of charter rights, and they have no response to that. I'm asking them, apologize. If you're stand up, you have a lot to say. Now would be a terrific time to apologize for violating our charter rights in the last parliament. I'm serious. I don't know why you're laughing. Excuse me, Mr. Speaker.
And they laugh at him, right? And he says, this isn't even a conspiracy theory. You already did it. You all have already done it. And the courts have told you that you can't do that it's illegal and what you did was a violation. It's wild. Andrew Lawton says, a Liberal MP accused me of peddling conspiracy theories and quoting alt-right media for talking about the 120 plus churches that have been burned or vandalized on the Liberals' watch. I will always stand up against real hate and defend free speech. It's a minute 36. Again, Liberals inventing a reality and laughing at Conservatives for bringing forward things they're concerned about that are happening in Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've got the real Conservative A-team this afternoon. Repeated Conservative conspiracy theories over and over in the House. If we want to talk about real hate crimes, and I'm not quoting, alt-right, so-called alternative news, talking about Jewish members in my community who are covering their Jewish identity in public. That is the hate that we're talking about that this bill seeks to address. So I'm trying to understand what is the members opposite real objection to this legislation. And when they talk about freedom of expression, it seems more and more likely that what they're talking about is freedom for their members to say whatever they want without consequences. Is that the real objection? Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Elgin St. Thomas, London South.
Mr. Speaker, I wish the member had spent less time working on what he thought was a zinger and more time listening to my speech, where I detailed in excruciatingly, and I will argue painful, detail real hate that is occurring against Christians, against the Jewish community. I mentioned the firebombing of synagogues, the shooting of Jewish schools. And by the way, the member should be well aware that the Jewish community has looked at this Liberal government and been absolutely ashamed to be represented by people that have cozied up with the very people who are responsible for Jew hatred in this country. So I do not take any cues from this member who wants to accuse conservatives standing up for freedom of being conspiracy theorists. He should be ashamed of that. Hear, hear.
So it doesn't matter what is being argued. The conservatives are consistently being called conspiracy theorists, no matter what they bring forward. And that's not by accident. It is by design. It's a branding thing. They're trying to paint them with this brush. Okay, that's the point. Jonathan Kay says the reason Indigenous people are grappling with these claims, he's responding to CTV News, which says Indigenous people grapple with claims downplaying the history of residential schools. And Jonathan Kay says the reason Indigenous people are grappling with these claims is that the media, Canadian media, including CTV News, flat out lied, telling us that 215 baby corpses were pulled from the ground at Kamloops in 2021. Maybe try retracting your many fake stories and see if that helps. And during the Iraq War, the first Iraq War, I was a kid, and I remember hearing and seeing, and I've since watched the footage back, but there was a parliamentary, it wasn't parliamentary, it was a congressional hearing in the United States, and a woman went to the parliamentary hearing, and she said that soldiers, and I think it was Israeli soldiers, but I can't remember now, were throwing babies from the NICU on the ground. And so this is very visceral, right? Like you get a emotional reaction to that, hearing that news, that these soldiers came in and you know, they threw these babies on the ground and all these babies died and blah, 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 so on and so forth. And it turned out to be fake, totally fake. Fake news, fake story, fake, nothing like that ever happened. And yet it was used to justify further military action. And I'm probably getting the bad guy wrong. I'm probably getting the soldier wrong. Apologies about all that. The detail is really, they make up this idea that children or young mothers with children or pretty ladies, young pretty ladies, not like, 50-year-old ladies who could be mothers to adult children. No, like 25-year-old girls, right? That's what I'm talking about. And so they make the stories focus on that in order to trigger your emotional response. That's why. That's what they do. And they do that on purpose. And I just think that it's interesting. We are being told things that are not factually accurate. It's not true what they're saying. And yet if you disagree with them, people are saying that's a hate crime. We're going to call the police on you. If you say this is not factually accurate, what you're saying is wrong, then we're going to call the police on this hate crime that you're perpetrating on the internet right now. And that's wild. Like, that's crazy town. Here's Jared, and here is a video of Premier David Eby admitting he was wrong on drug decriminalization. Premier Eby, quote, "It was not the right policy. What it became was a permissive structure that resulted in really unhappy consequences." I think that's understating it in a drastic way. It's way more than unhappy consequences when it's your kid, when it's your adult child that's died of an overdose from free drugs. When it's your kid who, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid who's getting onboarded by dillies or whatever that are being rerouted from the quote, from the government source to criminal source, and everybody turns a blind eye. Unhappy consequences, like ruined lives. Unhappy consequences? Not quite enough, sir. Caroline Elliott says, court transcripts show that the BC government quietly went to court with the explicit intention of making it so a future democratically elected government cannot undo the highly problematic Haida Agreement. This is the owning property thing. Personal private property owners on the island were told that this island is actually their island, and so do they own anything? I don't know. And they told no one. Anyway, worse yet, this was after the Cowichan ruling, which similarly overlaid Aboriginal title onto private property and said that Aboriginal title is a senior and prior right to private interests on the same land. As Vaughn Palmer writes, it's just the latest evidence of this government's hidden agenda on Indigenous relations. The United Nations wants to administer the lands on behalf of the First Nation people of Australia, of Canada, other places. This is a de facto way to hand all of that land back over. It looks like they're giving it to the First Nations, but they're not. They're handing the control to the United Nations. It's one world government, NWO style bait and switch, like a shell game. That's what I think. National Post is reporting we're sick of it. Hundreds at Cape Breton rally denounce federal gun buyback program. So they don't want to do that. And they were being watched by drones and stuff. All sorts of crazy things that were going on with this rally. And they even closed the police station because it was supposed to be done in front of a police station because the police chief was going to be participating in it and signed his officers up to participate in it. And they didn't want that. And so they were going to protest those people. And they just shut the police station down. Right? So crazy stuff. Wall Street Engine says CITI expects AI demand to require 55 gigawatts of new compute capacity worldwide by 2030, driving $2.8 trillion in spending. The U.S. alone is expected to add 30 gigawatts and account for $1.4 trillion of that investment. What they're saying is they're going to push energy prices up by 30%. So you and I pay for all of this energy needs from AI. And man, I'm skeptical as all get out. It seems like they do big things in order to get to a goal. And the goal is not what it seems at first. Like they say it's one thing, but really it's another. Like, for example, World War II, the goal was to bring, free Europe from fascism or whatever they wanted to say. But really, I think the goal was to kill as many European males and families through the death of those strong males who would be sent to war as possible. I think that was the real goal of the Second World War. But I could be wrong. I'm just speculating here because that's what I do. So when they say we're going to be putting all of this money into electricity, and the reason that we're doing that is for AI, I think to myself, what are we really doing? Like, that's what you tell me that we're doing. But what's really the goal here, right? What's really the goal here? Because I'm skeptical. I'm a skeptical guy. So usually I'd be killing the stream right now, but I do not have time to do any kind of post-production on this. I'm usually in the room at 1:45 for my kitchen table talk, but I'm not going to be in the room at 1:45. I'm going to try and finish this out, and we're going to then turn off this stream and then go right into the kitchen table talk stream. So it's going to be super fun. But usually I'd be saying goodbye to the stream, but we're going to carry on stream, so let's carry on. Roman Baber says, no Canadian should be in legal jeopardy for free speech. I will be questioning the Attorney General why the Liberal government is seeking to lower the bar to convict of hate speech. And so he's got the Supreme Court definition of connotes emotion of an intense and extreme nature that is clearly associated with vilification. And Bill C-9, the emotion that involves detestation or vilification, and that is stronger than disdain or dislike. This is the different definitions of speech. And so this is, I think, what the strategy is from the Conservative government, what they're expecting to do to counter C-9. And I think to myself, weak.
The definition as follows: the emotion that involves detestation or vilification, and that is stronger than disdain and dislike. So one is an extreme emotion of an intense nature, and the other one just involves detestation and vilification. So clearly the new threshold used by the Liberals for hate speech is much lower. And I'm very concerned that this is going to create a chill on free speech, that folks are going to be afraid to communicate because they might not know if they may pass a much lower line and potentially find themselves in legal jeopardy. Conservatives are going to work very hard at committee to make sure that when the Attorney General presents before us at the Justice Committee, I'm going to question him very seriously and insist that we go back to the Supreme Court definition of hatred and not the new Liberal diluted definition of hatred. I'm Roman Baber. Talk again. Thanks.
That's it? I mean, woefully inadequate. This is not the response we need. Bernie says, pay attention. This is my warning to you. As this policing of thoughts and speech becomes more sinister, understand this. Anything you say may be held against you and used to silence you. Your intent does not matter. You don't need to lie, threaten, or even be rude. All it takes is for a person, police officer, or authority to claim your words made them feel alarmed or distressed. Truth won't protect you. You can post something accurate, sourced, and backed by official reports, and still be accused of online harassment. If someone claims you've created a hostile atmosphere, that can be enough. And you don't even need to break the law. Civil injunctions, community protection notices, respect orders can ban you from speaking publicly and can be used preemptively in case you say something offensive in the future to silence people. No jury, no trial, just a judge ruling that your speech causes discomfort. This isn't about protecting people, it's about protecting narratives. This is the front line now. It's not about safety, it's about control. Yes, and so again, I'm going to do my job. This isn't my job. This is my hobby. I love doing this hobby. This is my favorite hobby of the last 5 years. And I'm going to keep doing it because this is my outlet. So I'm going to keep doing it. And I hope that I don't get arrested. Is this a hate speech? Tamara Uglioni is responding to OPP East Region, and OPP East Region is throwing their officer under the bus. The other day I reported that I showed video of an officer saying that he would not arrest somebody on trespass because they have not been asked to leave, and that's outside of the usual order of things. There has to be certain things that happen in order to trespass somebody. They have to have been asked to leave and refused in order to go to the next step. And so the OPP East Region says the OPP is aware of a video showing an officer responding to a request from a restaurant staff to remove an individual who is filming inside their business. In Ontario, under the Trespass to Property Act, property owners or those responsible for a property have the legal right to ask someone to leave if they're doing something that is considered prohibited. The owner or person in charge of the property is responsible for deciding what is prohibited. If the individual refuses to leave when asked, they may be trespassing. In that case, the owner or occupier can call the police to help remove the person from the property. We acknowledge the officer's response in the video does not align with the provisions of the Trespass to Property Act. The incident is being reviewed and addressed internally to reinforce both appropriate conduct and application of the law. We remain committed to supporting our members with ongoing training and guidance to help ensure responses reflect legal standard and the professionalism we expect of our officers. So if an officer steps out of line, they say, oh, don't worry, we'll send them to retraining. Here is Tamara Uglioni, who's responding to this. She says, the OPP is aware of a video showing an officer responding to a request from a restaurant staff to remove an individual who was filming inside their business. The individual was never asked to leave and had already left the vicinity of their own accord, and thus a trespass order was never justified. Our officer used discretion. Please do not use police as private security to run cover for illegal conduct. We denounce sexual exploitation of minors, immigration scams, and marriage fraud, some of which are under investigation by the Canadian Border Services Agency in relation to this Tim Hortons. The end. So it's interesting that the OPP is trying to protect people who are trying to commit immigration fraud through pressuring their 17-year-old employee at Tim Hortons to marry an Indian guy for his immigration. Pretty crazy stuff, if you ask me, seriously. And the fact that the OPP is coming to the rescue of the Tim Hortons and the scam, wild. Gen X Girl says, holy cow, guys, I just put all the events of the influencer campaign that I can find on a timeline, and I'll post tomorrow morning. Have to double check, but WTF. For now, if you live in these states and go to church, you're getting geofenced and tracked by your phone and targeted with pro-Israel ads. California, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, and all Christian colleges. They called it the largest geofencing and targeting Christian digital campaign ever. Why would Israel, or why would somebody want to post pro-Israel ads targeting Christians? And there was an example of the ad, and it said one of the ads, and I can't find it now, and I should have tagged it. Darn! I was just scrolling through this morning, and I saw it, and I thought, wow, that's wild. The ad was an elderly woman in like black and white, and it was help feed an elderly Israeli now. You know, like this is what you should donate money to this campaign and stuff. Not campaign, like directly to feed an elderly person in Israel. And I was like, wow, what a crazy thing. And not to say that, do you think maybe that might be happening in Canada? It's just interesting how versatile technology is and how they can target Christians with pro-Israel ads. Isn't that wild? Isn't that super niche, right? Like, my gosh, what kind of world can do that, right to your device? It's like they're tailoring it directly for you pretty soon, right? Like that's pretty niche. That's pretty specific, right? Like, whew. Chris Burnett says this gym in Nova Scotia charges $30 to white people and $15 to everybody else. So what if you found out that you were at this gym and then you're like, listen, I'm not white. White? Me? No, dude. Like, stop being racist and give me the $15 price because I'm not white. Right? Like, Jeepers Creepers. I identify as whatever gets that $15 price, man. Like, what do you need me to identify as? I'm a black attack helicopter right here, right? Come on. Joe Warmington says, oh, he's responding to the OPP thing. He says, you're supposed to back your officers, not throw them under the bus. Yeah. Here's Grums, and he says, Magic the Gathering champion barred from attending next week's event because he wears a mega hat. This is ridiculous. So yeah, that's pretty funny. People are trying to make people, it's called othering people, right? And you make them social pariahs and unable to participate in the social order of things because they are outside of what is expected in proper company. And it's very effective. It's very effective at getting people to comply with the expectation, whatever that is. I was just watching Downton Abbey, and Downton Abbey, the big problem in the last Downton Abbey is, don't judge me, is that Mary got divorced. And so because Mary got divorced, everybody didn't want to hang out with her. And then they have to solve that problem. They do solve the problem, but this was the big problem. And so just the idea of being a social pariah would prevent divorces, right? People would be like, I would get divorced, but then, I'd lose my entire social circle. So, we can't have that. So I'll suffer through the marriage to keep the social circle. In that way, it's kind of the same thing. They use these things to chill the behavior. Anyway, I digress. Lori Goldstein says, let's do some grab bag of governance money edition. And Lori says, program note, the interim parliamentary budget officer, Jason Jacques, didn't say Canada had gone over the fiscal cliff. He said we were in danger of doing so, but there's now pressure on him to retract. I hope he doesn't, because we need independent analysts like him in Ottawa. Well, if he doesn't retract, do you think he'll get fired? It's interesting. They're trying to pressure him and say, oh, it's not as bad as all that. Everything's much better than it seems, all that stuff. But no, man, this is not how to respond to pulling a fire alarm or to an emergency situation that seems to be having our leadership make it worse, right? But this is how they're responding. Pressure that guy to walk it back a bit. Wild. The financial pressure is everywhere. I've been talking about this Conestoga College thing. Riley's resharing this. I think it's a CHCH news segment, but he says Conestoga College is now giving exit offers to faculty as the international student crackdown takes hold. At one point, Conestoga College ran a $252 million surplus by aggressively recruiting international students, but now it appears to be in financial meltdown. And 50% of their 750 staff got packages like, you are a full-time employed professor and now we want you to go away. Here's your money, go away. So half. So that's a huge number. Link is in the description. And sorry, everybody on locals. I've posted yesterday's links. I do try and remember to post the links, but some days it's just super busy, and I apologize. This weekend has been particularly busy. Pierre Poilievre, let's talk elections. And he says Carney said to judge him by prices at the grocery stores. Let the numbers judge him. Sign here to help hidden liberal grocery taxes. And it says, since Carney became prime minister, pork shoulders up 37%, beef top sirloins up 28%, coffee's up 23%, strawberries are up 18%. So, and I think the coffee and maybe the pork has to do with tariffs from the United States. So we did that to ourselves, or allowed Carney to do it to us. Here's 6Buzz TV, and they say former CBC host says the network didn't allow him to interview conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. I was told to keep quiet and not rock the boat. And I have to tell you, my speculation on this is the same as Ben Mulrooney. Okay, I think Ben Mulrooney is going to be suggested, or people are going to want to have him take over the Conservative Party if it's not Jason Kenney, it'll be Ben Mulrooney, okay? Because of his dad, right? Just like Justin Trudeau and Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Trudeau had no qualifications to become the prime minister. Ben Mulrooney is probably more qualified to be the prime minister. And I don't say that lightly, than Justin Trudeau, right? Come on, because they're two people who are absolutely not qualified to be the prime minister. But I think they're positioning Ben Mulrooney to be the prime minister. That's why they put him back on, or to be the leader of the Conservative Party. I don't know the prime minister, but that's why they put him back on TV. But I think that the Mockingbird media, the talent that is run by three-letter agencies, for a lack of a better word, Mockingbird media, same thing, is moving to the online space. How do you move to the online space? Just like this. How do you move to the online space and have the trust of your audience, right? You have a public rift with the public broadcaster, with your old job, and then you start your own podcast. Look at how polished this podcast is, right? Like, and then his first guest is Pierre Poilievre. Oh man, the luck, right? The luck. So it's just one of those things. I don't know if his first guest was Pierre Poilievre, but it's one of those things where it seems just, there's things about this that seems super duper weird. And the exposure that he's getting, like all these bookmarks and likes and stuff. Is this a great interview? I didn't think so. I thought it was a little meh, whatever. Travis, who's the host, one of the hosts, I guess there's two hosts. He needed two hosts. Are you kidding, man? Come on. So one of the hosts was a former CBC guy who quit, I guess, or was fired, but they didn't process his termination letter for a long time. I don't know. There's all sorts of shenanigans around that. All of it seems weird. All of it seems like we want a big splash of a story about how big of a rift is between these guys. And now he's got trust and credibility with an audience that's going to be skeptical of a CBC reporter starting his podcast, right? CBC reporter against the CBC starting his podcast. Now we got a soup, right? So there you go. That's what I think is going on there. John Rustad must resign. There is a website called resignrustad.nationbuilder.com, and it goes through the reasons why John Rustad must resign. Sure. With an out-of-control BC NDP government, British Columbians deserve a strong, united opposition that will hold the government to account. Instead, under the leadership of John Rustad, the Conservative Party of British Columbia has been thrown into disarray. Rustad has chosen to put his personal interests and political future above the good of the Conservative movement, leaving supporters, members, and voters disillusioned. We are a grassroots movement of BC Conservative supporters who believe our party must represent hardworking British Columbians and not be held back by the whims of a weak, unpredictable leader. John Rustad's record speaks for itself, overseeing the collapse of the Conservative membership numbers by 25%, precipitating the shrinking of the caucus by 10%, expelling MLAs and staffers simply for deferring opinions, abandoning his base support of supporters, failing to inspire confidence, winning support from only 900 of 8,000 party members, dividing the caucus and undermining unity, weak polling numbers, drying out donations. These actions have weakened the party at a time when BC needs a strong Conservative alternative to the NDP. With John Rustad, the next election is already lost. John Rustad has the opportunity to do the honorable thing, step down as leader and allow a fair leadership race so the party can rebuild, regroup, and move forward united. We, the undersigned, demand that John Rustad resign at the soonest available opportunity so the Conservative Party of BC can get back to representing the people of British Columbia with strength and integrity. So I don't know that will be successful, but we'll see. Certainly. Here's Barbara Kay, and she says, the only political leader in Canada willing to speak the words radical Islamist in an official setting and to denounce them for attacking, quote, our values. Why is it so hard for others to state the obvious? So Legault goes through this in French, but Riley says Premier Legault pledges to ban Muslim street prayers and denounces, quote, radical Islamists in fiery speech. Radical Islamists, a group of people trying by all means to impose their values, to contest our values, and in particular the right of women to equality. So he is calling them out. Nobody else does. Here is this guy, and I don't know who this guy is. Sebastian agrees with him 100%. Sure, I think he makes some good points. I think that his point of view is worth considering at the very least. And this is what I remember when I was growing up. There was a merit-based system for immigration. It wasn't come one, come all. If you don't like your home country and if you don't like their laws and stuff, come to our country because we'll let you do anything here. That's not what it was all about. Anyway, here's this guy.
Doesn't benefit the fucking country. They shouldn't be here. What you're getting at there is a question of ideology. You just said yourself, we don't want to be the person that's anti-immigration. Well, why not? What makes you feel like there's anything wrong with being the person who's anti-immigration? The problem is that we've been socially acculturated, right? To believe that immigration is like a human right, that immigration is a good thing, that immigration is democracy. Fuck that! Fuck that! That's not why immigration was invented. Immigration was invented because countries needed to survive, so they needed to bring in skilled workers from other countries, or they needed to bring in labor-intensive workers from other countries to do jobs that the local skilled workforce couldn't do. That's it. That's why immigration exists. It's not supposed to be fair and just, and we're here to help people, and we want to make sure that refugees have a safe place. No, that's all political bullshit. That's all stuff that you feed a stupid citizenship to make them feel like we're doing the right thing by letting foreigners into our country. If the foreigner doesn't benefit the fucking country, they shouldn't be here. There's some other place they can go where they can benefit that country there, but that country isn't here. So when you're bringing in people who are unskilled, uneducated, and then when they come here, they also don't acculturate to your country, that's not an immigrant. That's a transplant. That's a person who's just bringing their culture, their life, their society to you to feed off of you, to feed off of your land and your taxes and your benefits to help them, not the other way around. And that's not me being anti-immigration. I am all for immigration. I come from a country that was built on the backs of immigrants who had something special and they gave it to the country that they moved to. That's completely different than giving safe haven to a bunch of broke and poor people because you feel like it's the nice thing to do.
I think maybe it's a cold point of view, but I don't think that he's wrong. Where's the lie? Right? Where is he incorrect on that? Here is another point of view. And this person is basically saying, it takes her almost 3 minutes to say it, but she says it in the first 30 seconds too. She is making the case that the ISIS and Al-Qaeda are American fronts for attacking the Middle East, basically, because America couldn't do that directly. So the CIA put together people who could. Here we go.
Not to be a conspiracy theorist, but have you ever noticed that ISIS and Al-Qaeda fight along the Israeli border, but they don't ever attack Israel directly? They tell us that Muslims hate Jews. So why don't they ever attack Israel directly? Why do they only fight fellow Muslims, which is entirely against their religion? Well, I know why. It's because Al-Qaeda works for the United States government and ISIS is an Israel and U.S. government creation. Listen, if you think about it.
Okay. So, right. She encapsulates it all. And then she says, if you think about it, and basically says the whole thing again, but it takes 2 minutes for her to say it all. So there you go. What do you think? Maybe plausible. I was like, I don't know enough because I try and focus on Canadian politics and world events as they impact Canada. And so I don't know a lot about Middle East movements and who's attacking who. And there are people who show up in the comments and tell me like, hey, did you know, blah, this happened, that happened, so on and so forth. And sometimes it's very interesting, but other times I have no idea, right? And so I'm not the right person to comment on that. But I think what she's saying, the conclusion she's drawing because of these things, if that's true, plausible, very concerning. So what's going on with that? I feel like, again, we're told one thing when the reality of that issue or that situation is something different. Here is Rob Schneider, and Rob Schneider is highlighting this Robert Kennedy Jr. clip, and Rob Schneider says, "Thank you, Secretary Kennedy, for rejecting this onerous and dangerous digital tracking and surveillance policy on behalf of the American people. The WHO is not a health organization. It is merely a tool for global tyranny. It's a supranational agency. It's an agency that exists over top of all of the other countries and is able to influence the other countries. That's why it's supranational. And so it's part of the New World Order, one world government structure." Here's Secretary Kennedy saying, we're not going to do that.
"We cannot defeat the epidemic alone, but the UN's approach is misdirected. It attempts both too little and too much. It exceeds the UN's proper role while ignoring the most pressing health issues. And that's why the United States will reject it. The WHO cannot claim credibility or leadership until it undergoes radical reform. The United States objects to the political declaration of non-communicable diseases. Member states decided earlier this year that this meeting should approve a declaration in advance by consensus to ensure this gathering would not be marred by controversy, but the declaration is filled with controversy, with provisions about everything from taxes to oppressive management by international bodies of communicable diseases. The draft declaration before us today should not have been included in today's agenda. The United States will walk away from the declaration. But
there you go. So we're not going to do this. It shouldn't have been included. And how about no? This is concerning because they're trying to rev this engine up again, and I show it to you only because I'm showing you they're trying to do this to us again. And once they have controls in place, like internet controls, where people can say this whole thing is pretty wild, they will try and implement this, and then people won't be able to speak out and say this is not a good idea. Don't listen to this idiot government. Ryan says the new news is reporting that 2 people caught a cold. 2 people. CBC says Kitchener-Waterloo COVID-19 outbreak declared at Cambridge Memorial Hospital. Outbreak is limited to 2 people in the inpatient mental health unit. In the mental health unit. Right. Shocking. Of course. So yes, 2 people caught a cold, and now COVID is on the loose in the mental health unit. Right. Here is some United Kingdom news. Oh, the ostriches got buried today. I didn't realize they were buried. United Kingdom news. Before Shaba Mahmood was the Home Secretary, she was a people smuggler. Go figure. So people are saying this video is showing her being part of a human smuggling operation in Greece in 2015. I don't know why I can't pause that. There you go. And so that's interesting. I can't verify that, obviously, but it's an interesting allegation, and I'm not surprised, right? Like, all of these human smuggling things are really, really the United Nations and places that will benefit from the destabilization of the West would definitely want this. And so putting people in position who were helping with it in 2015, elevating those peoples who were in the trenches, so to speak, in 2015 into political positions now is like a payoff for that, right? And so that's weird. Something to pay attention to. People are upset, right? Lee says Mahmood said she doesn't have the power to ban these vile anti-Semitic Hamas supporting hate marches. This is a lie. It's been used to ban right-wing protests. The real reason she won't ban it is because she agrees with the hate marches. She's not fit for office. So they're saying that her religion and her background is influencing her decisions as the Home Secretary, and that's concerning for people as well. And Fatex News says, breaking, drones that flew over and close to Munich airport were military recon drones, according to a classified report seen by Bild, B-I-L-D. So it shut down the airport for a long time, enough to have jets and a whole bunch of everything rerouted and stuff. And so that's super weird that it was the military doing it, right? So why is that happening? And so I'm watching that story to see how it develops. We'll see. Let's get some USA news, and then we'll do the ostrich news, and then some CO2 news, and then we're done. USA first says the flag installation has begun at Steak and Shake. Every Steak and Shake is getting the tallest and biggest American flag that local governments will allow. Steak and Shake proudly supports American values and traditions. So they're putting up giant American flags on every Steak and Shake. And I've been to a Steak and Shake, and it was delicious. The fries were delicious. The burger was delicious. It was great. So I don't mind supporting, and the shake was really good. Delicious. Top notch. Mega Storm says, insane bombshell. Barack Obama was using U.S. aid as a front to launder money through the Cayman Islands, all while pretending it was foreign aid. That money didn't go to help anyone. It went straight into creating and training rent-a-riot mobs used to overthrow governments. Mike Benz on Joe Rogan. And then Mike Benz goes through it. And so it's an 7-minute clip. So apologies that I'm not going to play it, but he goes through just how this money's being laundered. I think that we're doing the same thing in Canada. I just think that there's analogies, and I think it's like done in kickbacks, done in all sorts of different ways. Here is Terry, and he says, Chicago now. An illegal criminal tried to run over an ICE agent on the neighborhood of Little Village and Brighton Park area. She was shot and killed. Protesters on the scene are starting to get violent. ICE deployed tear gas. Just another example of FAFO. So that's wild that a protester was shot and killed. You'd think that would be pretty big news. And indeed, right after seeing that, I saw footage of ICE people, snipers on the roof, supporting the Portland ICE facility, and it does seem like a war zone. And it reminds me of the Iraq in early 2003 type deal, where people would go to safe zones in Iraq, but once they left, you had to have all the support and things like that. It seems like the streets are getting much more violent than they used to be, and that's not good news. Here is news on the ostrich front very quickly. Wasted Canadian says, under federal law, an animal injured must be taken care of. CFIA neglected their duties and should be charged for the death of Spirit the ostrich. So one of the ostriches died. It was confirmed through the lawyers. CFIA, I guess, allowed it to die. And I think that there's some merit to it. There are laws on the books that say you're supposed to take care of a sick animal, and it didn't seem like they did take care of the sick animal. Viva Fry says, translation of this tweet, the Canadian government is responsible for animal abuse. Yep, truth. Here is Odessa. She says, please sign this government petition that was done by MP Scott Anderson. So that's a conservative MP regarding the nonsensical cull of Canada's healthy animals. So it's interesting that the Conservative Party is doing petitions around this, but not really taking this issue whole hog, and nobody's addressing the actual underlying policies that allow this thing to happen. So it's really, really weird. Last tab for today, and then I'm going to go basically right into the kitchen table talk. So I'm going to stop this stream and then start a new stream. So I'm sorry, everybody, you're going to have to leave the stream and then start watching the new one if you want to watch the new one. Apologies. But anyway, Ivor says, very important reminder that we're being spectacularly scammed by the sinister United Nations globalist scumbags. And Julia says, your periodic reminder that a cow cannot add a single atom of carbon to the atmosphere that wasn't previously removed from the atmosphere by a plant. So cows cannot increase atmospheric CO2. They merely recycle CO2. It's not a new source of carbon. And without cows, bacteria would over time rot plant fibers and return the exact same amount of carbon to the atmosphere. But grazing cows help grass, sod, fix carbon in the soil, thus increasing soil fertility over time. The climate crusade is built on fraud. And many of the proposed solutions, like reducing cows, are directly causing much of the soil degradation and forest fires because of ungrazed fuel in the forest, which activists and dishonest scientists blame on climate change. Right? We're being manipulated and lied to in order for them to gain control. And the more control they have, the more control they want. And it's a vicious cycle. And we seem to be ignoring them, and they're deadly serious. And we should stop ignoring them. And anyway, I've got to go because I've got people waiting to come into the kitchen table talk. So thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for your support, and have a wonderful, wonderful